Are more expensive now in the UK than it was a year ago. UK government data shows the average price today is £1.43. Manx Radio News at 3 minutes past 12, our next at 1 o'clock. In the meantime, keep up to date by following Manx Radio on social media or by going to manxradio.com.
By Sainsbury's. Store cupboard and everyday items. Pay less and feel good. You know you're getting famous Sainsbury's quality only at ShopRite. Proudly locally owned.
The Mannin Line. Daily interaction, debate and exchange of ideas. Broadcast on Manx Radio.
You don't need to jet off to kick back. Enjoy a staycation at the Mannin Hotel. With bed and breakfast available and even a couple's weekend retreat. Why not book a dinner package including 3-course meal at the Liberties restaurant, overnight stay in Atrium or Broadway room, and full Manx breakfast the next morning. And NHS staff will now receive a 20% discount on all food and drink. See manninhotel.im to book.
Manx Radio weather with Manx Glass and Glazing.
Goromaya, thank you, Lewis. There's a strong wind warning in the North Irish Sea for the next 24 hours. Dry and sunny on the Isle of Man today. A light westerly will freshen and turn northwesterly later, bringing some showers this evening. Daytime maximum 12 down to 7 through the night. Into Wednesday, Jacrane dry with sunshine, a moderate fresh, to moderate to fresh northerly, and up to 11 overnight minimum 6. And into Thursday, dry, partially cloudy with sunny spells, a moderate northerly wind for Jordan. Top temperature 11 degrees. Tides on the way out, low water 24 minutes to 4 this afternoon. The sun sets at 17 minutes to 5. High tide tonight, 9:30, low water 5 to 4 a.m. and sunrise tomorrow morning, 22 minutes past 7.
Find the latest ranges of high-tech windows, doors and conservatories at the Manx Glass and Glazing showroom on the Snugborough Trading Estate.
Waltons have the largest stock of TVs with great deals ready to go. From the latest Samsung QLEDs to LG OLEDs. Visit Waltons. Call 611 711. Or go to waltons.im.
One architectural design company has particular expertise in achieving planning approval for a wide variety of projects, from landmark buildings to spectacular homes. Talk to the experts at Ellis Brown and get your project off the ground. For excellence in design, search Ellis Brown.
Wallpaper. With over 300 wallpaper designs to choose from, including Walt Disney, Harry Potter or wall murals. And for the grown-ups, Laura Ashley and Julian MacDonald. Visit the Island Floor Fitter Shop at 67 Parliament Street, Ramsey.
Firestone Rubber Roof Shop for one-piece flat roofing systems. No joins, no leaks. We also line commercial box gutters in one piece up to 60 metres with a 20-year written warranty against leakage. Call Rubber Roof Shop on 496667.
The Mannin Line with Andy Wint.
Six minutes past 12. Fast alive, good afternoon. This is Manx Radio's Mannin Line. There were 47 cases of COVID recorded yesterday. New cases. We now have 590 active cases on the island. 11 people in Nobles. Nobody's in ICU. 268 people waiting for a test today, for the result of a test, and 66 people in for a test today. From the vaccination dashboard, we've had 67,896 first doses administered, 64,525 second doses administered, and 11,300 people have had a booster jab. That's a total of 143,816 from the vaccination dashboard and the Department of Health and Social Care, currently holding 13,434 shots of vaccine in stock. That's where we are. And delighted to say Joe Cox is here from Manx, Chief Executive Joe Cox. Good afternoon. Thanks for being with us.
Hi. Thanks for having me.
How long have you been in the job now?
12 weeks.
And what a storm to come into as well.
In fact, the day that I joined, prices started to hike.
You can blame Vladimir Putin and everything else as well. Before we come into any sort of granular detail, Joe, where does Manx Gas get its gas from?
From Bord Gosh in Ireland.
Okay. Where's Bald Gosh?
Bord Gosh are actually British Gas. They're owned by Centrica Group, and they are based, mainly the head office is Dublin.
Okay. So everything comes in through the pipeline, presumably.
That's correct.
From
yes.
there, and then everything goes there. So just get me straight. The gas goes, obviously it fires the power station.
That's
yeah?
correct.
Are you
yeah.
anything to do with that?
No, that's MUA.
That's
so we actually purchase our gas via MUA.
Okay.
And they buy the gas from Bord Gosh on behalf of us. And the reason for that is because we're quite small as a business and we're BBB rating and they are a AAA rating because they're considerably bigger than us.
Okay. How do you know how much you're going to have to pay for the gas? Who decides that?
Yeah, so there's two different ways that you can buy gas. One's forward purchasing, which some people are calling hedging. And then there's spot, which means that you buy on the day that it's priced for that particular rate on that day. So you can do one of the other.
Okay. Right. Let's go to the phones first of all. I think we've got Ken with us first of all. And Ken, you're live with Joe Cox from Manx Gas. Ken, good afternoon.
Afternoon. I am a gas company. I was going to complain about Manx Gas initially, but it's the government's attitude to this price rise and the fact that, again, the Treasury Minister said there's going to be help for people later in the new year when, of course, the price rise has already gone up. It was not advertised that the price would go up the day after the order was passed, even though if you know about these things, that's what it said. It's going to be, that will go up a day after the order's passed in Tynwald, if it was passed, and there wasn't enough really discussion about it. But they should have, in the order, they should have given people a week's notice. And also Manx Gas, the only thing wrong with Manx Gas is that a lot of people are paying on estimate. My estimate, of course, is too low, so I've put a new reading in, and hopefully they will rearrange it. I thought, I'm just disappointed with the government's attitude to the price rise.
Okay, well, let's bring in Chris Thomas, MHK.
Well, Chris, we have spoken by email.
Good afternoon. I'm not here to speak for government, but you make a good point, which is that the Minister Ashford confirmed today that the social security-based scheme would be paid on the 20th of January, whereas the increased prices are payable from the 20th of October. So I think what Minister Ashford would say is something along the lines of people won't feel the full impact until after the 20th of December because of the nature of Manx Gas's billing cycle. Perhaps Ms Cox could explain that a bit further.
Yeah, that's absolutely correct. So even though the increase went in on the 20th of October, only 11 days of their November bill will be at the new rate and it will be clearly line item. So you'll have the original price up until the 20th and then you'll have the new line item price. Now, the good news is in October, consumption of gas is considerably less than it normally is at this time of year. So I don't think that anyone will feel a major increase in November because consumption is considerably lower. You'll actually see the full impact on the 20th of December bill. And I think the reason that the government have brought in the assistance from January is because actually you generally don't pay your bill until the beginning of January. So the bill run is around 20th of December, and obviously then you'll have some time until after Christmas in which to pay.
Can I just say, but how many people are paying on estimates?
So
I thought Manx Gas would have sent an email to its customers saying, please give us an up-to-date reading of your gas meter.
Yeah, so we do around 11,000 meter reads a year. So there's 23,000 people that we need to get to. We've got people that drive around and physically take meter reads. We're currently at 8,000 meter reads. If you've got an estimate, and we are estimating, you can proactively call in and give a current meter read so that we can bring it and actualise it for you, or you can look at the estimates. Now, some of the estimates are taken from considerable amounts of data, so they're generally correct. But if they're completely out of whack and you feel that they're out of whack, then please do contact our customer service and give us a meter read proactively. We are trying to get to as many of the meters as we physically can, but it is a physical thing. You know, they have to drive there and have a look.
Now, can I just mention one other confusing point about the whole thing, and apologies from Barry, I'm part of the group, but some people talk about a VAT inclusive price, which is the order, but of course when you get your bill, it's the gas rate, then the VAT's added on. So sometimes people get confused as to what price gas actually costs.
Yeah, so the standing charge information that Barry did put in was incorrect. So we haven't increased the standing charge. It is only the price of gas.
Right, yes.
To be very clear, the 2.1 pence includes VAT. So we actually apply a 2 pence increase, and then the additional 1p is the VAT. So the 2.1p increase is inclusive of VAT.
Yeah. And the last question then is, did Manx Gas fail to buy enough forward buying of the gas, or couldn't the company afford to buy forward?
I'm really glad you've asked me that question, because there's a misconception that most gas companies buy 90% in forward purchasing. That's absolutely incorrect. You buy forward purchasing if there's validity in the market. And if you look at the last 14 years of gas prices, the only volatility has been between 30 and 40p. At one point during those 14 years, it went to 60 pence. That's the most it ever reached. So you generally only forward purchase at a big rate if there's huge fluctuations in price. And therefore, up until the last 14 years, we have never, ever, ever in the history of gas seen a hike up to 4 pence per therm, ever. So you would generally only hedge during peak times to give your company stability. And most companies only hedge during that winter period. They don't generally hedge during summer because of the volume risk. So what you have to do is you have to think, well, what volume was used this time last year? And what volume do I want to commit at what price? So it's really complicated. To give you an example, our forward price for summer next year, so I can buy a year in advance, is £1 per therm. Now that's still 70 pence more than we would typically expect to purchase gas. So at the moment, I'm sitting here thinking, I don't think that's the right thing to do, because if the market then shifts back to normalised rates of 30 pence, I've just committed all consumers to £1 per therm rate, and that's not the right thing to do either. So you generally choose to buy in quarters. So you would say, right, I'm going to look at the next quarter in advance. What's happening in the market? Is it hugely volatile? How much percentage do I want to commit to? Does that make sense?
It does. Can I just add one other thing? I know how many customers Manx Gas have, but your parent company, how many customers does it have overall?
I don't have that number off the top of my head. I do apologise.
Only because I've got to point out there's a company in the UK that's got over 1.7 million customers. They look like they might be going to the wall shortly in England.
Yes, I think that's Bulb. I think you're talking about Bulb.
One thing before you go, which is that the tariff fixing regulations that were passed by Tynwald do include VAT, but if by chance VAT changes, I understand that the regulator would make the changes inside the tariff fixing on a case-by-case basis. And the second point is Joe has explained very clearly volatility and forward purchasing and hedging, and it is a risky process. So that's the most important thing I heard to come through there. So, for instance, over the years, Manx Utilities has lost money forward purchasing, both in currency markets and also in energy markets. Yes. So it costs money to hedge, and it's a business in its own right. And the final point, Ken, is that you make a really good point about bringing up the scale. Manx Gas is tiny compared to British Gas and Bord Gas and so on.
To give you a sense, Manx Gas is the biggest out of the three. So Jersey and Guernsey are considerably less than Manx.
Okay. Yeah. All right. Thanks, Ken. That's good to hear from you.
Cool.
Just a couple of figures that I've got. Just if you could confirm these as well. I was looking at the respective web pages. Jersey 15.5p, standing charge is 39.2. Guernsey's 13.47p, standing charge 35.4. Isle of Man 9.74p, standing charge 16.9p. Does that sound about right?
Yes, that does sound correct.
That means the Isle of Man's cheapest.
Isle of Man is cheapest out of the three islands. The gas in Guernsey and Jersey, remember, is LPG, however, not natural gas.
Okay, let's go to... Wow, I wondered how long it'd be. Barry, hi.
Hi, Andy.
Hi, Barry. Well, you're live here with Joe Cox and Chris Thomas.
Hello, Barry.
So I appreciate you letting me on as well. Good afternoon, Chris. Good afternoon, Joe. I need to be quick, so there's probably a lot of people want to come on, but I need to set a little scene for you, please, and then I want to follow it on with a question. So here we go. So whilst many decisions were made behind closed doors between Cabinet Office and Manx Gas pre-2020, therefore never becoming public knowledge, I assume that both parties acknowledged the findings of the NEO report published in 2018 that clearly stated that a 9.99% guaranteed ROCE was too high. And following on from that, a two-part refund or rebate for years 2020 and 2021 was promised. That would be half paid by government and half paid by Manx Gas. And here comes the question. Does the panel think it was fair that Manx Gas set criteria on its part for the refund, and also the fact that to date the government has not repaid its share either, bearing in mind the government did not set criteria, and please explain why?
Yes, so I'm aware of the previous conversations, Barry. We did put forward the voluntary agreement on that basis, but now we've moved into the world of regulation. So that, I think I've mentioned this before, we've moved on from that. I do know that the government are still intending to discuss with us how they pay that rebate. Since I've been around, they have talked to us about how we apply the rebate to the bills, and we are in continued discussions regarding that. So they haven't forgotten. It's just applying it to people's bills is a manual process. So we're working that through as we speak.
So I'm not speaking for the government, but that did come up in the Tynwald members' briefing, and I do hope that government will honour the promise that the public, Manx public, heard them make in respect of their contribution, at least in 2021. And the question then comes, how is that paid in terms of, is it a lump sum equal to everybody, or is it proportionate to gas use?
Yes.
And who's going to administer it? And I hope that Cura can work with Manx Gas and the government to come up with a fair way of settling that trust issue, because it did damage the perception of gas customers of what they'd been promised, and it wasn't fulfilled.
I can understand that, but to reassure you, we are in discussions regarding how that rebate is applied.
Yes, Barry?
So the first thing I'd say is that I met a very fine gentleman at the early part of this year by the name of Ray Harmon. If Ray is listening right now, I wish him nothing but the best. But I would suggest that whoever is making the decisions, whether it be in Cabinet Office or elsewhere right now, or even in Manx Gas, about how this should move forward, even though Ray is unfortunately no longer a Tynwald member, I think that Ray could give valuable advice moving this forward, because if there was ever a time that a refund needed to be paying, it's right now. So that's the first thing I would say. But I want to go back to my question, because my question hasn't been answered, and it's particularly going Joe's way, please. So the question was quite clear. Does the panel think it was fair, and the word is fair, that Manx Gas set criteria on its part for the refund? That is the question. So please, Joe, can you explain whether or not you think it was fair that Manx Gas set a criteria on that refund? And if you did think it was fair, can you please explain to me why you think it was fair? Because I don't think it was fair.
So, Barry, I'll be really open, and I wasn't party to discussions prior when those rebates were being discussed. So I don't know how the criteria was set. I know that the discussions were had, but since I've joined, we've been knee-deep in the consultation for regulation. So I wouldn't like to make assumptions on how those decisions or the numbers will come about, because I wasn't party to those conversations.
Briefly, Barry, what's your view?
Well, my view hasn't changed. When I set the scene at the start of the question, from my opinion and from my memory, and I have to remember quite a lot, there must have been decisions and conversations had between Cabinet Office and Manx Gas post 2018 when that NEO report came out. So we do know, looking back in time, that the major push was to actually sign another voluntary deal, and the idea of imposing regulations was almost like a secondary thought. But that was another mistake by government, of course. But it was there, and that option was always there to be implemented. But you see, as I explained to Joe once before, the vast majority of Manx Gas customers haven't got a clue the difference between voluntary regulation and imposed regulation. They haven't got a clue about that, and they still don't, because all they know is that they were promised a refund or a rebate and they didn't get it. But you see, for me, if I was to try and keep this fairly simple, Andy, if you owed me a fiver, and everybody else agreed that you owed me a fiver, I don't think it would be very fair for you to set criteria on whether or not you're going to give me that fiver back. If you owe it, you clearly owe it. So I think there comes a time where the public need to start to understand about what was discussed and what was agreed between the Cabinet Office and Manx Gas post 2018 when that NERA report came out. Now, my thinking would be what was agreed and what was talked about is that absolutely not a cat's chance in hell would the return on capital employed ever be a guaranteed 9.99% again. We already know in the future, moving into next year, it's going to be much, much less than that, closer to 6%, I believe.
Okay.
So what I think is that both parties agreed that it was too high, and therefore they both made steps to because of the delays seeking an agreement or because of the delay coming to introduce a new regulation, that they would actually refund customers based on that assumption. And my opinion is Manx Gas have done a real bad do by not giving that money back and by clearly not explaining the reasons as to why they haven't. And I would appeal to anyone, just before I go, that there is a petition on change.org/IOM gas customers. If somebody wants to sign a petition, if I can get over 1,000 signatures, I'll forward that on to the Chief Minister. And what I'm requesting is a select committee to investigate as to what happened, why it happened, and try to bring this whole matter to a close.
Okay.
And thank you very much for your time.
No, Barry, thanks for calling us today. Chris Thomas?
No, but both the Gas Consumers Group petitions to date have been very important at crucial times in the evolution of the negotiations. This current petition has got two parts. One part is for the rebate from government side, and I see that as being absolutely paramount and the most important. It is necessary to learn lessons from the past, but that's not quite as important in my mind, because often committees can be places to lure good ideas to be slowly strangled. And at the moment, we want to fix things for gas consumers and the Manx taxpayer, and to have secure, reliable, affordable gas during a difficult period on the island, and that's going to be my focus.
But in PR terms, to promise people one thing and not deliver it is an ongoing PR disaster.
Agreed.
And obviously, Joe Cox, this you must feel like somebody's handed you a pile of, well, because you knew nothing about this, and in it comes. Chris Thomas, how much is it going to cost? How much will the rebate cost? And why is, briefly, in simple terms, why is it delayed?
Well, government's part of it will cost hundreds of thousands. Manx Gas's parts of it would have cost the same, and it's delayed for political reasons. It was suggested to us that there were issues about how it was going to be paid, like I tried to talk about at the beginning of the interview. I hope we can get over those as soon as possible, and I hope that government, for whom I'm not speaking, does decide that it's going to honour its promises, and then that we can move forward and Manx Gas can speak for itself.
And so, to be really clear, I'm aware of the agreement that we made prior to 2020. We put forward an amount regarding the rebate. It's very clear, though, that voluntary agreement was rejected, and therefore we moved into a regulation environment. For me, regulation is a really good thing, because it's an impartial, independent person that sits between the consumer and the provider. And for me, that should reassure those consumers that they are looking at our management accounts, they're looking at our profit, and they're agreeing what do we think is a fair profit that we should be making. And when I look at the social media feeds, the anger is about the fact that we haven't honoured the agreement. Well, that ship has sailed. I'm looking at you to say that ship has sailed, and yes, we do need to agree how do we apply that rebate that the government is confirming that they will honour. We just need to agree how do we apply it to the bills and when. So I'm working with them on that. But the agreement that we made, we've moved past that because we are now in a huge regulation consultation. Now, that is a positive thing, and the consumer should see that as a positive thing, because it means that they agree what should be a fair profit. And it was Cura that put forward the 2.1 pence recommendation. So there's also a myth that I requested 6 pence. That's not true. What I actually did was we just requested a price increase. It was a neutral letter that said, because of the ever-rising cost of gas, we need to request a price increase. They recommended the 2.1 pence based on our management accounts.
OK. Joe Cox is here from Manx Gas. Here's Chris Thomas again.
And just one last thing. So the crucial thing that was on the table in October alongside the price rise was the fact that we now have a better system of regulation, economic regulation by a professional, independent, credible regulator, which was much better than the situation we were in for the decade previously. And so that's what members saw when they unfortunately had to vote in their first Tynwald for that substantial gas price rise.
OK. Howard's with us on Mannin Line. Howard, you're live with Joe Cox and Chris Thomas.
Good afternoon, Ms. Cox and Chris. Just a curio, my last gas bill, although it was an estimate, was read on the 16th of September. The new gas tariff came in on the 20th of October. Now, how can they disseminate that from September to the 20th of October, and my gas is not due to be read until sometime in the middle of this month? So we're going to have an area where the gas was consumed at the old price, and which I can understand now, an area where my gas is consumed at the new price. How can they differentiate? Now, I asked one day down there I rang up, it was for something else, and I asked a young fellow, he said, oh, they're going to put 10 units a day on your old reading. So I don't even know where that came from.
Okay, so what they'll do is they'll take a full real-time meter read based on your up-to-date meter read to the 19th of September, I think that's what you said. And then they would take an estimate until they, again, read that meter. So the real-time, the correct meter read brings you up to date, brings your count up to date. And then going forward until the next meter read, it's then estimated based on your prior sort of path of consumption. So we can see from one meter read to the next what your average consumption is. So it's not as black and white as it's the same applied to every consumer. It's based on previous data that you individually have been consuming. Now, if you're worried about it, you can proactively call in with a meter read today so that they can give you a proper real meter read.
I'm not worried about it in so much that it's not very clear in how they're going to differentiate between the September read, which I've paid, it's all paid for, that's done. 16th of September was read and I paid, it was after that obviously, but between that date and when the price went up, it will be at the old rate. But since the 20th of October, what I have been consuming is at the new rate. So this is what I'm asking, how can they differentiate between the new and the old rates?
So you'll clearly see on your October bill the old rate and the meter read that it's estimated against, and then the new rate and the estimation that it's come through for those 11 days. So if you want to call in with a correct meter read, then we'll actualise it for you.
Yeah, it's just there's going to be people out there, myself included, are going to be worried that the new rate will be, well, it'll be applied to a part of the old gas consumption before the price rise.
By and large, Howard, are you happy with the service Manx Gas provide?
Up to date, yes. Yeah. And, well, so the only reason why I had to ring them, because I'm on direct debit and they'd taken money out, but they hadn't given me a bill. So that's when I asked about this, and the chap said, oh, they're going to put 10 units a day on your bill at the old price. Now, I didn't know whether that was for what had been consumed before the price rise, or it's going to be on the consumption of gas after the 20th of October.
Okay.
It wasn't very clear.
All right. Thanks for calling, Howard.
Thanks, then. Take care.
Good to talk to you. Chris Thomas is here. Just tell me, Chris, why do you keep saying I'm not speaking for the government?
Because I'm here as somebody who's been involved in gas and economic regulation more generally for a decade, and I wanted to help when there were political things discussed or when there were practical things beyond 12 weeks ago.
It wasn't my question, it was Jim who just said, why does Chris Thomas keep saying I'm not speaking for the government? It's 28 minutes to 1 on Manx Radio. Live on Mannin Line today, Joe Cox is here, boss of Manx Gas, and Chris Thomas is here, not speaking for the government, but you heard what he said.
Conister Bank are proud to be part of Isle of Man Government's Disruption Loan Guarantee Agreement, supporting businesses affected by the pandemic. Conister Bank has helped many local businesses to survive and continue to trade. The scheme has now been extended until March the 31st, 2022. So if your business has been affected and you require financial support, we're here to help, even if you're not an existing customer. Call Conister now on 694 694 or apply via our website. Terms and conditions apply.
Call the UPVC window specialists, Phoenix Windows, for quality windows, doors and conservatories, along with fascias, soffits, barge boards, guttering and all building work undertaken. With free estimates, free surveys, guaranteed work and all island coverage. Phoenix Windows don't use standard off-the-shelf frames. Their windows are made to measure, which means you get a perfect fit, less bulky frames and more glazing. Call 816628 or visit phoenixwindows-iom.com. Steam into Christmas with family and friends on the unique Isle of Man Railways dining car. Our winter events programme has something for everyone. Journey through the Manx countryside enjoying sparkling festive fun. To get into the Christmas spirit, book now by calling our Yuletide team on 697457 or visit rail.in and experience one of our festive train adventures.
Ho, ho, ho! Here at Ramsey Garden Centre, we have Christmas covered. Walk through our Made with Love magical Christmas wonderland. See our fabulous new decorations, lights indoors and outside for all occasions, baubles and beads, trees, real or artificial, gift ideas, and a few surprises at Ramsey Garden Centre. It wouldn't be Christmas without a visit to Ramsey Garden Centre on Albert Road. Visit us on Facebook to see what's in store this festive season.
This weekend on Manx Radio, we're teaming up with St John Ambulance to give you the chance to win £200 to use towards any of their courses and a universal first aid kit. To win, all you need to do is take part in our winning weekend wordplay, which is on all day Saturday and Sunday. Get your name in the draw and we'll announce the winner on Monday morning at 10 to 9. So join us this weekend to be a winner with your nation station Manx Radio and St John Ambulance.
The Man in Line with Andy Wint.
Look at that time, 26 minutes before 1 with Joe Cox from Islands Energy Group. That's Islands Energy Group, the whole company's called, isn't it?
That's correct.
Ankala are the people. What is Ankala?
They own us. 100% own us.
And what are they? Are they a financial structure?
They're a private equity firm that invest in companies worldwide.
Do you give them money or do they give you money?
There's the myth. We don't give them any money. So there's a bit of a myth that they keep taking money and taking it off the island. That's not correct. So typically Ankala make money when they sell. So they'll invest in a company, they'll buy it, and then they'll try and turn it around and make it more profitable to sell. That's really when they take their money out, is when they do the sale.
Okay. Just a question just said, why are gas boilers being outlawed and not oil boilers? Doesn't gas have half the carbon footprint of oil?
Do you want to take that, Chris?
In January 2022, government should be coming back to Tynwald with a report on space heating as part of the climate change agenda. That was a follow-up from a resolution that Tynwald took in the last House of Keys, and that's one of the questions that I'm sure will be considered in government's report. It has been Manx Gas's position for quite a number of years that overall, in terms of mitigation, climate change effects, we'd be better off with more gas boilers rather than oil boilers. Mm-hmm. So that's been their position. I can't speak for Manx Gas either, never think, but I think that's been their position.
What's the official policy at the moment?
2025 for no installation of fossil fuel boilers and new builds is the same as it is across.
So
and,
no gas, no oil?
For new builds. There's still lots of detail to fill out, and that's what we'll start talking about January. But the point I've been trying to make in front of the Manx public for the last 3 years when I've been closely involved in this is we've got to make decisions about this sort of thing. The reality is we have a gas pipeline bringing natural gas into the Isle of Man, which fuels our electricity generation. We've paid for the capital costs of that in 2023. We've got to make a decision about what we do in terms of electricity generation. That decision still hasn't been made. Then we've got to decide how much hydrogen is mixed in with that natural gas that's coming in, because in the northwest of England particularly, there is a programme in place to mix hydrogen, to blend it into the natural gas. And then thirdly, we've got to decide to what extent we're going to subsidise electricity heating in houses and in businesses, or whether we're going to carry on with with the use of natural gas or other fossil fuels.
Has that gas interconnector been paid for?
In September 2023, the capital financing costs will have been paid for. Every year, Manx Utilities will still owe money to Bord Gáis for the operations and for the gas that comes through it and for so on. But the actual financing capital costs will be paid off in September 2023, and €9 million will become available to the Manx Utilities Isle of Man government each year because of that fact, and that's crucial.
What about the upgrading of the grid, the gas grid that took place, umpteen years ago?
About 2010, commissioned I think in 2011-12, the Treasury financed for Manx Gas's use a transmission network around the island, which combined with the conversion from town gas to natural gas cost around just a bit less than 20 million, and Manx Gas pays for that, from memory, at 6% per year under a lease arrangement for about another 20 or 30 years. Right. And that's the sort of thing that's also got to be on the table in the light with our climate change obligations.
So Manx Utilities makes money out of Manx Gas?
A little bit, not much. I mean, really, it's just a interest rate based on the agreement that we had. So we generally do have a fair agreement with MUA, to be clear. You know, they don't make masses of money out of us.
How does a gas company feel about being kind of legislated downwards in the business scale by saying, you know, no fossil fuel boilers?
So it's really interesting. I think there's a lens that you can apply. So I think it's right that we don't put boilers into new builds, but the reality is there's a lot of boilers already on the wall in the existing housing estate. So for us to pull those boilers off the wall really before they've aged would actually be worse for the environment. So I think we have to make it clear to consumers that by 25 it's the new build that we shouldn't be putting in gas boilers, and we have to, as a company, start to invest in R&D to see, okay, well, what are we going to put in instead? But there's a mass estate of gas boilers sitting on the wall that still have 20 years life in them, and what we're not saying is, please, can you replace your existing boiler with a new fancy schmancy boiler that's hydrogen based, right? So I think that's a really clear message to the consumers. We'll still continue to maintain those boilers. I think what people need to also realise is that hydrogen gas is a lot smaller than regular natural gas. So in order for us to supply that to not only the boiler, the infrastructure has to have massive investment.
What do you mean smaller?
It's a bit like the difference between Coca-Cola bubbles and Pepsi bubbles, right? So the Pepsi bubbles are smaller than Coca-Cola bubbles.
I never knew that.
Yes. And so actually what that means is I have to go around and secure my infrastructure because we get bigger leakage with hydrogen.
Oh, I see.
And that's not what you want because it's incredibly combustible. So we need to make sure that our infrastructure can take the smaller gas.
But you're onto a key point here, Andy, which is that this discussion is now happening seriously, because this last week on television, people now know a lot more about green hydrogen and blue hydrogen and plans in the northwest of England than they did 3 years ago. Yeah. And now we've got to make actual decisions with the Manx public in the next year or so as part of our climate change agenda, so we have certainty for Manx Gas and Manx Petroleum and Manx Utilities Authority, and most importantly for the Manx public. And that's the discussion that needs to take place, and it will take place, and I hope it starts on January 2022, as long as government's fulfilled its promise to bring back that report to Tynwald.
Here's a question in from Brenda for Joe Cox. What's your opinion of this gas field that's supposed to be off Mackle?
Not sure what that is. Is that in the sea?
Yes, Chris Thomas.
Well, I'll take it because it's connected in the sense that gas, but in a way it's not connected. So a company, a Crogger, had a licence for a gas field off Mackle. They lost that licence in April, but it was very much a live political issue during the general election, and government will have to make up its mind, and Tynwald will have to make up its mind what it does in the future.
Yes. And so, I mean, there's a possible... Well, and again... The optimists amongst them would say that there's a gas field there that we could tap into that could secure our gas future for 20 odd years while we transition to green. Is that something that Manx Gas, IEG, will be interested in?
Absolutely. So we have started to invest in different types of skill sets coming into our business that have knowledge of hydrogen. So you can remember that a lot of our engineers have been here for 25, 30 years, and they are trained in natural gas. So in order for us to start using different types of gas, we're going to have to bring in different skill sets. And so we have started to invest in specialists that are coming into our business that understand more about hydrogen. But we do have to lean in and diversify our portfolio. I've mentioned that in previous interviews that I've had, that our reliance on natural gas is what's almost killed us overnight because we're not diversifying what we do. So any people that are prepared to come to us and say, right, okay, I'm prepared to provide green gas, different hydrogen options, then we'll be open to those conversations, absolutely.
And just to add to that, Ankala Partners has a diversified investment portfolio, but there is a concentration on alternative energies as well. So it is a large investor in biogas. It used to have a Scottish hydroelectric scheme. It owns a gas pipeline, which is very important. So that's one of the other major issues that was there on the floor of Tynwald in October, which is our reputation as an island and the government's reputation in terms of how we treat pension funds and institutional investors in terms of putting together a stable platform for them to make investments, whether it be in alternative energy, whether it be in hydrogen, whether it be in biogas, or whether it be in natural gas and older fossil fuel investments. And that's quite important for me.
We're streaming live on Facebook and on YouTube as well. This is Manx Radio's Man in Line with Joe Cox, the boss of Manx Gas, Ireland's energy group, and Chris Thomas is here, not speaking for the government, but just with a wealth of experience behind him. Joe Cox, we've heard tales that we haven't heard ever before in the UK of energy companies going bust. And it's a siren call for consumers. It unsettles people. What can you tell us? How is Manx Gas financially, economically? Is everything stable?
Everything is stable. It has been a difficult time because when the prices went up to £4 per therm, it was really worrying. I mean, that's 1,000% increase to what we normally have. And I hear people saying, why can't you just suck it up? Why can't you just use your profits that you've been making from us over the years? But you can imagine that pot only lasts for so long. And so it's cash flow that kills most companies overnight. It's what killed Lehman Brothers. Lehman Brothers were a highly profitable business, but they went under because they ran out of cash. Actually, if we hadn't had Tynwald step in and allow us to make that price change, then it would have been a difficult time for us over the next 6 months. We would have had to start making decisions around employees, and we would have had to try and hold on to making profit wherever we could. So it was absolutely necessary that they stepped in and allows us to try and make some money. I mean, at the moment, to give you an analogy, it's like buying £10 notes for £20 and selling them for £8. You know, a company can only continue at that rate for so long. If you were buying something else, if you were buying something like a dress and that dress cost to come in was doubled in price, then what you would do is put the cost of your dress up, or you would stop supplying that dress. Unfortunately, we can't just stop supplying gas, so it was a necessary evil, unfortunately.
How did you feel when you saw the price? Did you believe it, first of all, when you saw that price increase?
Well, it's really interesting, the discussions that I was having with Gareth Fuchs, our CFO. So when I started, that's when the price started going up over £1. And you have a bit of a sense of, this can't go on. And then it went to £1.60. And we had a really emergency call to say, do we think this is going to continue to hike? And it got worse and worse. And we were watching it on a daily basis. We do watch the price on a daily basis. And then when it reached £2.65, we did think, this is absolutely dire. And that's when you saw a lot of companies crashing in the UK. So I've come from British Gas. And I also then moved into the smart meter world at Kelvin Capital, where we funded probably 27 of the gas suppliers in the UK. And those 13 people, I knew the CEOs directly, and they generally never hedged. And that's because in the history of gas, they've never needed to hedge. But it's those sorts of people that have been winning over the last 4 years because they haven't had the operational costs of the big six. But actually, thank goodness for those big six, because they do hedge much more so than the smaller guys that really play a bit fast and loose on, I'm going to have to take a punt. No one would have seen it going to that level of price, and therefore they couldn't sustain it because they didn't have the cash flow.
Lots of emails and text to get through in a moment. Chris Thomas is here with a wealth of experience, not speaking for the government. And Joe Cox, The CEO of Manx Gas is live on Mannin Line.
Tune in to our special Island Life programme this evening at 6 p.m. for Mastering the Menopause Maze, as I meet with a host of different guests and discover that entering the menopause doesn't have to mean putting your life on hold. That's Mastering the Menopause Maze with me, Christy D, this evening at 6 p.m, right here on The Nation Station, with a longer podcast programme available too.
Metals, metals, IMB metals. For steel, appeal. The number you need is for steel. That's metals, metals, IMB metals.
For structural steel and cladding, collection or delivery, with installation available too, just call 4Steel. That's 457881.
Metals, metals, IMB metals.
Hi, Jane. We must get that lunch we keep talking about. How about tomorrow?
Great idea. Oh, I know this great place, Port St Mary Golf Pavilion. I was there for a birthday party the other day. The food is fantastic.
Oh, yeah. I was there on Sunday for the carvery. They've done it up really nicely. Did you try the homemade cakes?
Wow. Yes, I did. They're definitely worth the calories. Talking of calories, I'm off to the gym. I'll do extra to make up for that cake we're going to have.
For menus and opening hours, visit psmpavilion.im.
At Southern Home and Gardens in Ballasalla, you'll find everything you weren't looking for. Plants for that part of the garden you've not gotten round to yet. Throw pillows you didn't even realise you needed. Tools and DIY accessories for that project you completely forgot you're supposed to be doing. Bedding that you didn't know you wanted, but you actually really, really want it. At Southern Home and Gardens, we don't stock products, we stock inspiration. Come and see us in the Baldain Estate, Ballasalla, or find out more at southernhome.co.uk.
When you need a monument for your loved ones, contact T.E. Cubban, a trusted family-run business for over 150 years. T.E. Cubban provide new memorial stones, grave renovations, new inscriptions and fire hearths. For quality workmanship and a professional personal service tailored to your wishes, visit us at Hope Street, Castletown, or at Broadway, Douglas. Call 844 440. T.E. Cubban, here when you need us.
The Mannin Line with Andy Witt.
Pastor Mike, good afternoon, 11 minutes before 1. Malcolm, you're live with Joe Cox and Chris Thomas.
I'd like to ask a question about the gas meters. Why is it that if you've got a gas meter in a property and you're not using any gas, you still get charged for the meter, as if you've got oil in the property and you don't use any oil, you don't get charged anything?
Yes, so the difference between oil and gas is that to just get the supply to your house, there's an infrastructure cost. So it's a minimal fee for us to be able to get that pipe to your home, basically. And the major difference is it's a bit like if you think about the taxi, when you get into the taxi, there's a fee that's already sitting on the meter. Yeah, so it's the same sort of thing. It's just to allow us to get gas to your home. The reason it's different to oil is because the oil investment of the tank that you put in your garden is £6,000. Well, you don't have an upfront cost like that with gas. So what we do is we charge you a minimum fee to just provide gas to your home, because there is a cost to get that gas to your actual doorstep.
Wow. Once it's there, though, it doesn't cost anything, does it? You know what I mean?
Yeah, but if you imagine...
You're paying for the gas, and more like you're paying over the top to the gas anyway. But what I'm saying is, once you've got oil in, if you don't use any oil, it doesn't cost you anything. The thing is, I don't know what it is now. It used to be £10.46 a quarter, I think it was.
Yes, but you do pay £6,000 up front. So that's the main difference. You don't pay anything up front to get the gas supply to your home.
Not if you've got a corporation house, you don't.
Okay. All right, Malcolm, thanks for calling. All right, it's good to talk to you. Thanks for being with us. Why didn't anybody put anything in preparation for a price rise, says Jeff. Why didn't you know the price was going up?
So we could future see the price was rising. No one ever expected it to get to £4.
Right.
So we did hedge. We hedged 35%. So what that hedging means, if you remember, is I bought 35% of my forward consumption over the next 6 months to protect the business a little bit. Even then, that was a risk though, because at that point, the price had gone over £1. So to break even, it's £1, right? So the price had already gone over the £1 mark, and we had emergency calls and said we should probably future buy. The reason that that's tricky is because if I'd future bought at £1.60 and then the price went back down to 60p because all of the Russia stopped playing and all the storms eased and COVID eased, etc., then it meant that I would have future bought at a price that would have impacted the consumer. So it's a really difficult juggle to play. And to give you an example of, it's not a flat 35%. In October, I'm hedged 87% because of consumption. So it changes. It isn't I'm going to forward by 35%. It's I'm going to forward by a volume of gas at 35%. If I'd have bought at 60%, I would have had to, in effect, pay for 30% of the gas I didn't use in October. And ultimately, that means the consumer's paying for gas that we didn't even use because consumption was lower.
If you future buy, when do you actually hand over the cash? When do you pay for the gas?
We pay for the gas on that day. So if you buy in advance, that's right. And that's again why a lot of companies in the UK went under, because they didn't have the cash in the bank to be able to buy for the future 6 months worth of gas.
Okay, Chris Thomas, any possibility of gas prices coming down?
Yes, everything goes up, everything goes down in traded markets. So they have come down since the Tynwald sitting. But the crucial point is that they're volatile. So in a forward purchase regime or a futures regime or a hedging world, you actually have to pay a premium for the ability to hedge into the future, and then somebody is taking the credit risk during the life of that future. And what we've got at the moment is a lot of volatility in gas prices, which means it becomes more and more expensive to forward purchase and to hedge more generally. They will come down, but what we actually need is to go back to the stable prices that we had, as Joe has told us, for a decade or so before this last year.
The good news is that they have come down. Yesterday they were back down to £1.65. They are fluctuating back up to around £2.20 the next day. So it is really volatile. But the good news is that they are coming down. But even £1.65, when you're normally used to buying at 40p, it's still 400% more than you're used to paying.
Okay, we've got 2 minutes. Ben sent a message in. In 2 minutes, Manx Gas's green agenda.
Goodness me, 2 minutes. Right, okay. So for me, it's almost like a roadmap that we start to have to articulate to you. So there's some low-hanging fruit, which is around how do we make sure that your homes are efficient. So I want to make this point to consumers because this is really important. We have examples where people have got astronomical gas bills and we do comfort checks. If you have really high bills, it's generally not to do with the gas itself. It's because there's something wrong with your home. So we do comfort checks where we can come in and check your home, check the insulation. There have been people that have been having their boiler firing on all cylinders at 100% all day long.
Are they free?
They're free. Yeah, so we offer those for you. So if you are worried about a really high gas bill, we'll come and do a free comfort check for you to say, is your home performing as it should be? Because quite often there's an underlying reason why your gas bills are high. It could be your water quality in your radiators, making your boiler work super, super hard. It could be that it's an old, inefficient boiler. So for me, on the green agenda, there's some low-hanging fruit that we have to do. So we have to make sure that anyone that's got gas supply today, they've got a great home that's really efficient, A. But B, we have to start investing in future technologies, bringing in skill sets that have a very clear view on what future technologies do we bring in to be able to offer a very clear green solution to gas supply.
Can you see Manx Gas selling other things other than gas?
They will be. So watch the space. If you know me at all and you look at my background, I've come from Centrica. I have a big background in smart home technology. All of those things, smart thermostats, etc., will be used to be driving down the cost of your energy. So we will be launching that next year.
Chris Thomas?
Well, and 2 points from government's side. The first one is they now have an energy efficiency scheme, and people should take advantage of that in the situation that Joe described, firstly. And secondly, to leave in people's thoughts, the prices and the price fixing that Tynwald has set will be reduced if the gas price comes down, like we all hope, and when 100%. Volatility goes around it. So Tynwald members were absolutely promised that this was under constant monthly review, and early over the winter, but more likely in the spring, the gas price fixing could be reduced again.
I completely agree.
Okay, thanks for being with us today. Thanks, Joe. Good to talk to you. And thanks, Chris Thomas, as well. That's it for Mannin Line today. The programme's going to be available as a podcast in about the next half hour or so. And if you want to follow up on anything that's been said by Joe Cox, the chief exec of Manx Gas, And you can drop a note on manninline@manxradio.com. Call the answer phone on 682-631. What's going to happen in the future? Well, a lot, apparently, it seems, thanks to producer Barry Redfern. And Mannin Line returns tomorrow at 12 midday on Manx Radio.